Welcome to episode 277 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyer, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing Allan Plenderleith. Allan has spent the last few years working in the interactive space, both writing and directing a number of interactive films. We talk about the process of writing for interactive media as well as how he got his start in it. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any website links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 277. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Allan Plenderleith. Here is the interview. Welcome, Allan, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you, Ashley. It's a pleasure to be here.
So to start out, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Good question. I came from a place called East Kilbride near Glasgow in Scotland. I did a degree in marketing, was always into writing, especially comedy writing, and I've always loved horror too. And of course, I ended up in advertising because that involved storytelling. So, and then really from there, I got lucky and started to illustrate some greetings cards ideas, some cartoons, and they got published. And from there, the characters in that story, I developed a sort of animated series, and ended up getting an agent because I was offered a deal. I had no idea if the deal was good or bad or what, and it was bad. I had a feeling it was bad, as most sort of deals are at the beginning. And from that, I had a deal, so I took it to an agent, and I had a ready-made deal. So they kind of sorted something out with that, and that started my career as a scriptwriter, which was quite a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I got you. So I get a lot of questions about people getting agents and stuff. So let's just touch on that for a second. So you're going along, you've got this deal in place. What was your process to find that agent? Did you go to like 10 agents and try and pick one that you liked? Did you have a friend who had an agent, get a recommendation that way? Maybe just speak to how you actually signed that exact agent. And maybe there were some other agents that you met with but didn't like or something. But just maybe give us a little fuller picture on how that all went down.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, for years, I had been reading a book called The Writers and Artists Yearbook, which I think there's a similar book in the US, but in the UK it's The Writers and Artists Yearbook, and it lists all of the agents. And literally, I would go when I was maybe 12 years old, and I would write down. I would go to the library, write down all the names that I thought that publishers that might want to publish stories that I'd written, and sent a ton of stuff to them. And of course, because I didn't have an agent, publishers don't like unsolicited scripts, and I had no reply, or sometimes you would get a nice rejection letter. However, I'm always quite determined, and you really have to be determined as a writer, because you certainly get more knockbacks than you do successes. And I just kept plowing away, and it was after university, which was again nothing to do with creative writing. It was half production engineering, half marketing. it was after that I sort of got back into being creative again, and I had sort of this outpouring of creativity. I just started doodling and thinking of stories and ideas, and it was that led to me getting an agent. And it was the same process. I literally ploughed through this Vice Narcissus yearbook and looked for agents which were in the same category as I was looking at, because a lot of agents specify the sort of genres that they specialize in. So if you're very good at, say, horror, or you prefer writing children's animation stories, then a lot of them do list those things, as things that they've done in the past and deals that they've done in the past, and they specialize in those. So that's kind of what I did. I think I've applied to maybe 2 or 3, and the man who he's called Peter Bryant. He was a lovely man. He used to be a producer on Doctor Who, actually, and a long time ago. And I think that certainly the 70s, late 60s, 70s, and he became an agent after that. So he was a fascinating, very characterful old agent who wore tweed suits and, was kind of rumpled, looked like someone had sort of crumpled him up. He was a lovely, lovely man, and a very good agent, because he was very dogged and very determined. So a good guy to have on your side. And really, because I had this strange offer, which came from Cosgrove Hall via Granada Entertainment, which doesn't exist anymore. But Cosgrove Hall is a very famous animation studio in the UK who did Danger Mouse and Wind in the Willows and stuff. Fantastic animation studio. They were my heroes. So I immediately I'd sent my script and storyboard to them, and that was without an agent. And they sort of picked it up. I mean, I tried everywhere. I tried MTV. I tried Channel 4. And I managed to get meetings with them, actually. I remember now. But it was Cosgrove Hall that picked it up. And that's when I got a deal. And so literally it was quick, find an agent, I've got a deal. So it definitely helps if you've already got some kind of offer or some kind of deal from a production company to get an agent. But it's one of those chicken and egg scenarios. Can you actually get them to respond to you if you don't have an agent? So it's I've got lucky. So it's a tricky scenario.
Sure. And I would think big companies, you just mentioned like MTV, some of these big animation studios, I would think their initial response would be no unsolicited material. It sounds like you were at least getting even past that, which is an accomplishment.
Yeah, I did. I met, I went to MTV, and there was a guy called, what's his name again? Something like Chris. And literally, he said, we can make this into a sort of, short form Simpsons type thing. The series was called The Odd Squad, which is a series of cartoons that I was doing. And he was really excited, and I couldn't believe my ears. And then he left about 4 weeks later. He literally just left, and I was like, And of course, the next person that comes in sort of sees a weird script about it was actually about nasal hair, and somebody playing, a violin on their nasal hair. Yeah, it's strange, but it was meant to be. They sort of looked at it and went, "Oh, what's this?" Because whenever the new person comes in, they never ever like whatever the old person, approves.
Sure.
So that failed, but I was excited for about 2 weeks, which was a nice feeling.
Yeah, sure. So let's dig into interactive storytelling. That seems to be kind of your focus now. Maybe to start out, you can give us an overview of interactive storytelling. What exactly is it? And, just maybe explain kind of how you broke into it a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's come from my love of computer games. I've literally, my first computer game, no joke, is is Pong, which was, probably not the first computer game, but it was certainly the first home console computer game that I was aware of. And my dad had borrowed this strange little device that plugged into the television. Mm-hmm. So, for years and years and years, my television had just been a television. This was when I was maybe 6, 7, I don't know, maybe 5. And of course, your television just sat there and you watched the television. And I was perfectly happy with that. And then as one day he came home and plugged this thing in and he said, here, take this control. And suddenly me and my dad were playing a game on TV. Mm-hmm. And it was literally like, oh my God, it was like, how is that happening? And of course, everybody knows the game and it's incredibly simple. But still actually a classic, and still really quite difficult. And that was my first game. So I've grown up from the very dawn of time, it feels like, for computer games, and seen where they've come today. And over the course of the years, computer games, for a long time, have been narratively becoming just as strong as movies. And those kind of even small games. Indie games are a fantastic example. Where you have these narrative choices which have massive impact on your character and the endings and so on. And really invest you as a player in the series so you feel a part of this story. And I've always been fascinated by that. I'm not a multiplayer video gamer. I just can't stand everyone else is better than me in the world at playing everybody says, I'm getting trashed by 5-year-old boys in Texas, and I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So yeah, I've always loved narrative stories, and I just love getting lost in a narrative story. And the beauty of video games is that you have these paths, these choices, and these actual moments which mean something. Mm-hmm. And if you like that kind of thing, then it's a fascinating world, and especially if you're a writer, it's fascinating because when you write a script, I don't know about you, but when I'm writing a script, I sit down and I think, okay, I've got to this scene now, what's going to happen in this scene? And you always think of maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways this scene could start, finish, end. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of narrative script writing is that you can write all of those things, and if one of them's weak, you can dump it, drop it, and keep the ones that are strong. Mm-hmm. And that's really cool, when you're a script writer, because you might have 2 fantastic endings, and you like both of them equally. Mm-hmm. And in a non-linear script, you can write both of them and make them both interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about just sort of the technical aspect of writing these things. Is there a different type of a format? Like, what does this script actually look like? I would imagine it's almost like a choose-your-own-adventure story where it says turn to page 65 for this choice and turn to page 68 for that choice.
A little bit like that. There are some bits of software which I've used in the past. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. No one has really cracked the sort of final draft of interactive storytelling piece of software. I would love Final Draft to come out with some kind of way, even HTML links within scripts which link to another part of the script. That would help, because as you're reading the script you could click on a link. But there's things like Twine. Twine is a free piece of software which is pretty simple. And does the job. It can actually be quite advanced if you want it to be. There's not really scripting so much, but there's a little bit of technical stuff in there. And what that lets you do is also play the story. So you can sort of press play, and then you will be given choices. You click on the choices like HTML links, and it will take you through. And that works pretty well. But in terms of I mean, I'm also, because, involved in the production side, what you really need is a piece of software that exports that to a production document. So you can see how many scenes you have, how many characters in each scene, how many days you're going to be filming, and so on, for cost purposes, which Final Draft does brilliantly. You kind of have to just, what I normally do at the moment is I write something as a flowchart, a very top-level flowchart, basic, scene by scene, and you can see the main beats. And then every single chunk of those things in the flowchart become a script. And so when it splits, it will either go here or here, and then it will become, there'll be two scripts based on those two chunks in the flowchart.
And you're doing this in Final Draft?
Well, I do the sort of flowchart part in draw.io, which is again a free piece of software. It works with Google, and that's pretty good just to visualizing flowcharts.
And Tom, sorry, tell me the name of that again.
Yeah, it's called draw.io. Draw.io, which is a free piece of software. I mean, there's quite a lot of other flowchart writing softwares, but what that helps you do is sort of visualize literally the script. It helps you visualize the structure, so you don't get carried away. I mean, the first interactive game that I created was called The Hunting, which was a zombie horror, and it literally was. It was a huge flowchart. I mean, I remember drawing it on a giant piece of paper, and it started off. You're in your home, and something appears downstairs. There's a terrible noise. You look outside the window. The world's gone to shit, and you go downstairs and you're attacked by the zombie. Your girlfriend is also somewhere. She's calling you. She's trying to find out where you are. She's being attacked, and from that point on, it all started in the house, which is quite simple, and then it split three ways. It went to the woods, it went to the town, and then it went somewhere else to some sort of army base. So literally, I was creating three different movies, and I soon realized this is absolutely ridiculous. I had no budget, I had no money. I filmed the whole thing on an iPhone. I was using friends to be zombies, as many filmmakers do, and great fun. And by the way, everybody wants to be a zombie. Nobody ever said no. You said, "Do you want to be a zombie?" Yes, obviously. When and what I had to do was reduce the width of the script, in inverted commas, of the chart. So what was a very wide story became narrower. So it became about the woods. So I thought, well, I can do that. I don't need too many special effects to do this story. I can have multiple branches. I can have multiple deaths and attacks. And it was all from live action, but it was interactive, and it did have several endings. So yeah, it was a learning process. I mean, I think it's very easy to say, yeah, let's have 10 different endings and so on. But even things like Tomb Raider, modern Tomb Raider, have pretty much one sort of ending. There's lots of deaths. There's lots of deaths along the way, but actually the story is pretty linear because it's so expensive. It's really expensive to film a huge amount of endings, and probably most people will end up on the same ending. And a bit like Bandersnatch. There are lots of endings. I've only played that once, but I'm aware of the other endings. But it's even just to get 4 endings is pretty difficult and also very expensive.
Yeah.
And also you're wondering, is it worth it? Because you really want all of those 4 endings to be fantastic, because that's what you're giving that user, viewer, player. I really
Sure.
don't know what to call people that are experiencing these things. But yeah, the player or viewer you want that person to have the best possible story. And that's the risk in interactive storytelling, is that they will get the sort of maybe the weaker ending. It happened in a game called Mass Effect. I think it was the third one. And there was a huge outcry because one of the endings was so sort of upsetting and disappointing for all the players that literally, there was a massive outcry on social media. Yeah. And they had to change it. They had to add in a better ending because everyone was so irritated by this ending that most people seem to get. So that was an interesting thing that backfired, but they corrected it in the end.
Yeah. So, let's dig into your other interactive film, The Bunker. Talk about that for just a bit. I did watch the trailer on that, and so so I got a bunch of questions kind of to drill into that. Maybe to start out, you can just talk about what's the logline, what is the premise of The Bunker?
Yeah, The Bunker is an interactive movie where you are playing the part of John, a boy who was born the day the bombs fall in England and the UK, and literally, the place is a small underground bunker. It's packed full of government staff. You're born. Your mother is the chief medical officer, and then it cuts pretty much after the titles come up to 30 years later, and your mother dies, and it's apparent, not a spoiler really, because it happens in the first 1 minute. Yeah, poor mother, Margaret, she dies, and it's a very sad scene. And literally, you're then the only person left in the bunker. And John is this very vulnerable man who's played by Adam Brown, who's Ori in the Hobbit movies. And he does a fantastic job of just being this very fragile, vulnerable character who is completely alone, but is safe as long as he sticks to his routine. And that's how you start the game. You stick to this routine, and as long as you do that, everything should be fine. And he's never left this little zone that he's in at the top of the bunker. There's several levels, there's sort of 5 levels. He's at the top. He's never left them. He said no reason to leave them. Everything he's got is there. All his food is there. He has a toilet. He has minimum electricity. It's all sort of running along nicely. And then one thing goes wrong. One thing happens. And it forces him to venture out of this level that he's never ventured out of for 20 years. And when he starts doing that, he unlocks a series of repressed memories as a 10-year-old child, where things started to go very badly wrong in the bunker, which he's suppressed. So, the story is about that. It's about you unlocking the memories of John and trying to defeat the bunker. Yeah.
So when I was watching the trailer, there were these little dots that would come on as if you were supposed to make a choice. And then when I started to watch, because you sent me the whole thing, the whole 30 minutes, obviously on Vimeo there weren't the choices. How does this actually work? Where can someone actually go to get the interactive version?
Yeah. So we cut a linear version of the entire movie, which is about 2 hours long, really 2 hours 10. So the interactive experience is about 2 hours 10, and we cut a 30-minute linear movie from that, which is sort of my director's cut, which is the ending that I prefer. It's the ending that I feel is the best ending for the character. But the actual game itself you can play on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the Steam store. You can download from there, and it's also available for iOS.
I gotcha.
So it's and it's also Nintendo Switch as well. It's also
so if we go to the App Store, we can download it onto an iPad or something.
Yeah, there's the PlayStation Store, there's the Xbox Store, there's the Steam Store, and there's the App Store.
The App Store, the Apple iPad.
Available. It's kind of designed. It works really well on, like a PlayStation because it's on a big screen. So like a movie, obviously, you want your story to be told on the biggest screen possible. So it works really, really well on PlayStation, Xbox. But it's great on Steam. Steam as well. I mean, my least preferred is the iOS version, but just because it's a small, it's a smaller screen, and there's a lot of detail in there which you might miss on a smaller platform.
Yeah. So what does the business model of something like this look like? Was this something that you produced yourself? You went out, raised the money independently and produced it, and then figured out how to make this interactive thing, got it on these various platforms? Was there a company? Is there some company that specialized in this stuff? They hired you? What did that sort of look like, just the logistics of getting this thing produced?
Yeah, well, stage one was we had an investor, Cloudtopia Entertainment. They came on board and funded the whole thing, so they were fantastic. And we, because this is obviously a video game and not a movie, rather than sort of finding a distributor, you find a publisher. And so we found 3 publishers, one of which helped us sort of build the game, which is Wales Interactive. And then we had Greenman Gaming. They helped us publish for PC. Wales Interactive published on consoles, PlayStation 4 and Xbox. And then we had All 4 Games, which is Channel 4. They published the mobile version. So basically, they didn't give us any money as such, but they helped, promote the game, distribute the game, get it on the platforms, format everything. There's a bunch of stuff you have to do, icons, logos, posters, unlockable extras and so on. There are quite, things you don't have to think about when you're doing a movie, but when you're doing a video game, you have to think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was useful because, you need people who know how to market something. It's the exact same as a movie. You can't just make a movie and expect everybody in the world to suddenly see it. How are they going to see it?
Yeah.
And that's almost as hard as making the movie itself.
Or harder. Yeah, or harder.
Yeah, or harder. Yeah. So what's the thing? Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get into the Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, because that's something people can actually go and watch right now if they have Netflix. But I want to talk about that at the end because there may be some spoilers, and I don't want to say I want to have a bunch of spoilers now, but I just want to go back for a second. Where do you ultimately think this is going to go? Like, do you foresee something like a Marvel Studios creating an interactive version of Iron Man 6? Is it eventually going to get to that level? Will there always be, the passive viewing experience? What's your sort of just take on the future of interactive storytelling?
Well, that's a very big question. Certainly, 2014 is when I did the Hunting. 2016 is when The Bunker was. And now we have Bandersnatch, which was sort of end of 2018. So it's still really in its infancy. It really is. When we did The Hunting, we were pushing the iPhone to do things that it really did not want to do. It kind of said to us, no, I don't want multiple streams of, videos lined up and any one that you click on, I'm going to play that one. It did not want to do that, It really was a struggle to make that work. But it didn't seem that long ago, 2014, but the iPhones back then were, completely different to the iPhones we have now. It's still really in its infancy, all of that, technologically wise. And I did like Bandersnatch in the sense that it was all streaming and it was very smooth, and I thought that was a fantastic accomplishment, and it shows what could happen. And I think definitely there would be outlets for Marvel movies and so on, big tentpole movies, to do that kind of interactivity. It doesn't work for me in the same sense as a very emotional, drama, a sort of touching personal drama. I don't think it would work. Can you imagine Roma being, an interactive? You choose whether to save the kids at the end or not, let them drown. It just doesn't quite work in the same way. Whereas if you're Batman, and you're choosing what to do, then that's completely different. So, there have been fantastic games by Telltale Games, which have done that narrative video game thing very, very well. And those basically are interactive movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been done, but they're all animated. Personally, I never really thought we were making, a video game as such. There always has to be a good reason for making it interactive, rather than just saying, let's do something interactive. Let's make this. Let's make an interactive thing. Right? What do we do? Mm-hmm. The reason why I wanted to make The Hunting, for instance, was that moment in a movie, in a horror, where there's a big scary house, and this is at the end of The Hunting, which, by the way, you can't get anymore, but you can. There's videos online. But there's a moment at the end where there's a big scary house, big farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by zombies. Your girlfriend is in there, and she needs help. Do you go in? And in a movie you'd say, no, just run away, phone the police, just survive. And I always thought, wouldn't it be cool if you did a movie where you could actually do that? And in The Hunting, you can run away. You can completely run away and not save your girlfriend. And you probably will die, actually, is what happens. But, at least you get the satisfaction of not being the idiot that runs into the scary farmhouse. Mm-hmm. To go back to my point, I think there always has to be a good reason for doing it, not just let's make something interactive. The story has to be inherently interactive. There has to be a reason for it. And it doesn't have to be choice-based necessarily. It's more about the immersiveness of it. With The Bunker, it was about feeling what it was like to be completely alone in this terrifying space. Mm-hmm. And if you're watching the movie, it's a completely different experience to playing the game, because in the game you're making decisions which could kill, you as in the main character. And that's another thing about playing something as interactive as that. When we tested the game at video game conferences, the first scene is the mother dying. John's on the bed. John is sort of crying. And the first thing that people would say is, "Oh, my mother's dying." Okay? So in a movie, you wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say because you might associate with the main character. You might feel like you're Iron Man or whatever, and you might relate to them, but you never say, "Oh, I'm Iron Man." "Oh, I've just been hit by a giant robot or whatever." Whereas video game logic is you are that character, whether you're Lara Croft or someone else. Mm-hmm. You become that character, so you're invested more. So it's more about that. It's that investment of character and being a part of their life and being a part of their decisions. Whether they be good or bad. And you may die, but you feel it's your fault. If you killed them. You're like, oh, when Lara Croft gets spiked constantly, time and time again, you're like, sorry, Mm-hmm. You feel like you kind of let them down. So yeah, it's just a weird difference, but it's a very important difference between movies and interactive, entertainment.
Sure. So let's dig into Black Mirror's Bandersnatch a little bit, and I'll kind of just give you my sort of impression, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. It was thoroughly entertaining, so if you have Netflix, it's available. The first thing that I ran into was I'm not someone that has one of these super smart devices, so I just have like an old DVD player that has a Netflix app on it, so I booted it up on that, and it wouldn't work, and it came up and said, sorry, you can't watch this on this device. So we had to get out an iPad and then basically watch it on our iPad. It's me and my wife sitting on a couch watching this thing. So that was a little bit of there's still some kinks. It's like it would have been much more fun to watch it on the TV. Once we got into it, though, I felt like sometimes it felt like you got into these loops where they essentially just said, you'd go through this loop and they'd say, well, no, that wasn't the right choice. And they'd basically send you back to choose something else. Like if you could just, you could go around in circles, I guess, if you wanted to all day. But eventually you realize, okay, I got to choose B instead of A. And so that sets you down the story. And truthfully, by the end of it, I kind of felt like, like we got to the end of it and we got one ending. You're telling me now, I guess there's 4 endings or whatever, but we weren't really that interested in going back and trying to redo figure out those other 4 endings, because it felt sort of like, it felt very, it felt a little contrived by the end of it. Like, it didn't feel like you really had a lot of choices. It felt like ultimately you were going to end up at the same spot because of these loops that you would get in. I think we went down one loop and it circled us back, and then it was like, oh, well, that was just kind of a dream or something. I was like, a little one thing. There was a choice at the beginning that we made, and we went through it again. It was like a little 5-minute segment, but eventually it just sent us right back to the same spot. And that doesn't feel, it doesn't feel that interactive when you make a choice and then they basically slap you, said, no, wrong choice, try again.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm super critical because, I've been writing interactive stuff for, 5 years. And I am critical. However, I do think it was a fantastic experiment and had fantastic moments in it.
Mm-hmm. It was fantastic, though. I like Black Mirrors, like all the Black Mirrors. Like I just like Black Mirror, so I don't want to like poo-poo it. Like I was thoroughly entertaining, and I highly recommend it. But it didn't feel as interactive as it could have, and it because I think when we were emailing, you made the thing that it was implemented. Like once we got out the iPad, they did do a good job of seamlessly, like you would press the screen and it worked seamlessly. So they had that stuff worked out, which I'm sure for Netflix was a major hurdle to get that to work through the Netflix app and stuff. So all that stuff was good.
Yeah, no, I do agree though that. I felt it was quite linear. There was dead ends. So, if you can visualize a flow chart for Bandersnatch, there is a sort of central, like a tree. There's a central trunk. And there's lots of little branches that go off, but then you end up back on the main trunk again. There's kind of one main trunk, and then just at the very end it splits off, and there's about four or five different endings. And there's a few endings before that, but they're sort of dead ends. So there are dead ends there. There are choices which aren't real choices. You either, I think one was flush the drugs or throw the drugs away. That's the same thing. Mm-hmm. There's no difference whatsoever. I would have loved to have been a really big sort of conclusion to the serial choice at the beginning. So if something had called back, maybe it does, I've not seen it, but something that called back the cereal choice at the very beginning, which is Frosties or Sugar Puffs, I think. Mm-hmm. Which I don't even know if you've got in the States. I have no idea.
Yeah. And that just felt like, if I'm remembering correctly, that just felt like a choice for the sake of a choice, just to get you used to pressing the screen and understanding that there's kind of some interaction here. It didn't feel like it really.
It's a sort of tutorial, really, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to warm you up. What happened to me, which is I think is probably quite rare, is that I played it on an old PlayStation 3, and it worked beautifully on that. Apart from my controller has a sort of battery saving thing on it, and so if you've not used your controller for about 2 or 3 minutes, turn yourself off, and you have to press the PlayStation button in the middle. And that happened a number of times where it would go on way too long, maybe 5-7 minutes without any choice. You kind of forgotten what you were doing. Suddenly there's a choice. My controller was off. I had to press the middle button. It would flash. It takes ages. It's not like the PlayStation 4. PS3 takes ages to sort of come back on again. And then and I would have missed the choice, and it would make its own choice. So that happened a number of times. So you can actually just sit there and not do anything. You can literally sit there, and I'm not entirely sure what ending you get when that happens, but you can sit there and do absolutely nothing, and you will still get an ending. I must maybe try that sometime.
Yeah. So anyways, again, I don't want to poo-poo it, because I think Black Mirrors is excellent from top to bottom, and I thought this was excellent. I just felt like, for a first outing, I give Netflix all the credit just for getting this kind of just working out the technical things, and it was, pretty seamless. But it felt like it could be a little bit more interactive. Couple of last questions, and then we will wrap it up. I'd just like to ask, what do you think, what is your advice for a screenwriter who's looking to break into interactive storytelling? Would you, like in features or even even TV writing, there's sort of a tried and true method. You write spec scripts, maybe you try and produce something on your own, a short on your own, that kind of stuff. What do you think is the best path? Someone's listening to this podcast, they've got a background in writing and creative writing. How can they break into this video game writing, interactive storytelling?
Well, I mean, the way I broke into it was literally making it myself. I mean, it's no different to a first-time filmmaker starting out, and that was my first live-action thing I'd filmed. I'd worked on animated projects up until then. And, I literally went out with a camera, a bunch of friends, had a script, and I made it up as I went along and pretended I knew what I was doing. And in many ways, that's the best way to do it because, when you've made something, you learn so much, number one. B, it's very easy to publish things nowadays. There's Unity, is completely free. You can publish to many, many platforms using Unity. And it can handle interactive stuff like this, very, very easily. And, again, it's completely free. And then, there might be some money involved in publishing to places like Steam, for instance. There's a bit of a fee, I believe, for every item that you publish to Steam. But, the App Store is free to publish, apart from the 50 quid membership that you have to pay. So, yeah, I'm saying it's free. It's not free. There are charges. However, it's no different to, publishing a movie on iTunes for the first time or, all these kind of platforms. So, with minimal cost, you can absolutely do it. But, another way to do it is just to practice with things like Twine, which is a completely free platform. You can write your own interactive story. You can write an interactive script on there, and then send it to people, and then they can play your interactive story and find out what happens. You can even do it on things like all the Echo Dots and Amazon Alexa. You can actually play interactive stories now, and there are platforms online which let you write those interactive stories, and then Alexa will read the story out to people and give them a choice every now and again, whenever you like. Enter the big dark scary house or run away, and you can play it as a sort of almost like an audiobook, but spoken by artificial intelligence. So if it's something that you're into, there's loads of ways to get into it, without costing you too much money, and just have a bit of fun, actually, But if you're serious about it, then definitely coming up with a good story that needs to be interactive. Why is it interactive? What's the point of it being interactive? Are we missing out on lots of stories if it wasn't interactive? And that's the kind of thing. I mean, the story we're working on right now, called Gamer Girl, is very much like that. There are consequences of every decision you make, and none of them are good or bad. It's all about a sort of streamer who's she's a sort of slightly popular streamer. She's getting bigger and bigger, but there is somebody out there who feels like he owns her, and he tries to use very, very clever manipulative techniques to get closer and closer. So it's a sort of dark thriller, and you play the part of the moderator. It's a sort of like a Twitch platform. And that kind of world, it lends itself to being interactive because there are so many factors in the story which are, there's no right and wrong. Like I say, it's always a fine balance between making her very popular and keeping her safe, because there's this horrible trend in social media of, the more dangerous, the more dodgy, the more shocking things are, the more views you get, and we've seen time and time again, I'm sure the YouTubers I'm talking about, that have done things which are, questionable and have come back to bite them.
Highly questionable.
Yeah, highly questionable. And so that's, people watch, so we're all complicit in that sort of culture. So that's why Gamer Girl is interactive. it works. It works only as an interactive thing. It wouldn't be as strong as a linear feature film.
I gotcha. Okay, so what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing? I will just round that up for the show notes and link to it all.
Sure. Well, I'm on Twitter at Allan Plendy, which is Allanplendy. And my website's kidstvwriter.com. We've got the Bunker, which is on PlayStation and Xbox and Steam and iOS. So it's all out there. There's tons of videos online on YouTube as well. The Bunker, you can just watch it. And we have the linear movie version, which is a sort of short film, 30-minute short film version as well. So there's a bit of stuff out there.
Yep, perfect. Well, Allan, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. This has been a fascinating interview. I know just like my mind is like swirling with ideas about how this could potentially be used and stuff. So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will feel the same way.
Fantastic. Well, I'm a big fan of your podcast. So
well, thank you.
It's been lovely being on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Allan. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Cheers, man. Bye.
Cheers to you too. Bye. I just want to talk quickly about SYS Select. It's a service for screenwriters to help them sell their screenplays and get writing assignments. The first part of the service is the SYS Select Screenplay Database. Screenwriters upload their screenplays along with a logline, synopsis, and other pertinent information like budget and genre, and then producers search for and hopefully find screenplays they want to produce. Dozens of producers are in the system looking for screenplays right now. There have been a number of success stories come out of the service. You can find out about all the SYS Select successes by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. Also on SYS podcast episode 222, I talked with Steve Deering, who was the first official success story to come out of the SYS Select database. When you join SYS Select, you get access to the screenplay database along with all the other services that we're providing to SYS Select members. These services include the newsletter. This monthly newsletter goes out to a list of over 400 producers who are actively seeking writers and screenplays. Each SYS Select member can pitch one screenplay in this monthly newsletter. We also provide screenwriting leads. We have partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads services, so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, we've been getting 5 to 10 high-quality paid leads per week. These leads run the gamut. There's producers looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. They're looking for shorts, features, TV, and web series pilots, all types of projects. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. Also, you get access to the SYS Select forum, where we will help you with your logline and query letter and answer any screenwriting related questions that you might have. We also have a number of screenwriting classes that are recorded and available in the SYS Select forum. These are all the classes that I've done over the years, so you'll have access to those whenever you want once you join. The classes cover every part of writing your screenplay, from concept to outlining to the first act, second act, third act, as well as other topics like writing short films and pitching your projects in person. Once again, if this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, please go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that is sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Jim Mercurio, who is a writer and author of the new book, The Craft of Scene Writing. He's got a unique approach on writing the actual scenes in a screenplay, so we dive into that and discuss some specific tactics to strengthen your scenes. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. To wrap things up, I just want to touch on something from today's interview with Allan. A new medium like this is a great way to give yourself a leg up on the competition if you can dig in and become an expert. As interactive grows, the people who are experts in it will have lots of opportunities. Now, I'm not suggesting you try and tackle this if it's not something that interests you at all, but if it does interest you, you might really consider trying to do what Allan did and write a low-budget short and produce it on whatever budget you can muster. Even if it's just halfway decent, it could establish you as an expert in the space, which again, as the space grows, could lead to some interesting opportunities. It's just a matter of getting ahead of the curve. And these new opportunities like this, they don't come along every day. I mean, there's certain things that just come up as the technology changes and whatnot. I had a lady from the Austin Film Festival on maybe a year and a half ago, and she was talking about writing for fictional podcasts. I think that's another opportunity. But these new opportunities, they only come along every so often. So if it's something that you see that interests you, doubling down on it and becoming an expert, it really can kind of give you just a leg up. And then it's not always just about the writing. You're not necessarily always competing just specifically on how good the writing is. You're also competing on how much you know about the space. And again, just getting ahead of that curve can help you get some of those new opportunities as they come up and as they start to exist. I mean, there's things that just simply don't exist now. Opportunities, projects, writing assignments that just simply don't exist. But if you're an expert in this space, as those opportunities do start to come up, they'll be looking for people with some experience. And again, even if you just have a short film that really takes advantage of this interactive technology, and you're a real expert, you know how to write in it, you know how to maximize the impact of it, those sorts of things. These people, these producers, as they're looking for writers to bring on to these projects, they're going to be looking for people that have experience in this medium, and there just won't be a ton of people out there. So I think it's real smart what Allan has done. He's really established himself as an expert, and I still think this medium is new enough that if you were to dig in and get out there, really figure out how this all works, I think you too could become an expert in it. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.